Back. Now, when you hear the term role model, what comes to mind, or who comes to mind? The term often comes with heavy expectations that lead to a close to perfect life. You never know who's watching, they say, in society. Role models are often people in the public eye. They could be athletes, entertainers, even politicians. But some would argue that being in the public eye should not mean someone is a role model by default. We'll be discussing what I call the role model syndrome and why we seem obsessed with placing that burden on anyone of note in society. Plus, how has social media challenged the whole idea of being a role model as we know it? Let me introduce my guest. From my furthest left or right is Joanne Obwaka. She is a digital content producer as well as a mom. We also know her as Yummy Mummy. We also have Derek Bbanga, who is emotional intelligence trainer, entrepreneur, managing director of public image, as well as an image consultant. Looking forward to a lot of your points, Derek. And we also have an able extended panel, mini audience of university students drawn from University of Nairobi and the Technical University of Kenya. Thank you all for coming in. Let me begin with you all. When you think of role model, what comes to mind in terms of a definition, or who do you consider to be role models right now?
Okay, my name is Isaac. When I hear the word role model, what comes to mind is a character or a person you can imitate. And basically, we say that if you're a parent and you want maybe your daughter or son to have good morals, and yourself do not have good morals, then all of you are duped.
Wow. So it's someone who has also a moral burden placed on them.
Yes.
Beyond maybe what it is that they do or where they work. It's mainly how they carry themselves or behave.
Exactly.
In your opinion. Okay, you can take another one here.
Okay, thank you. My name is Mary Ojwang, chairperson WOSWA. And for me, a role model is someone you're looking up to in terms of values. Maybe you want to acquire some values and skills. And as you say, it's just about the burden. There is a burden you put into them. You're looking up to them. There is some limit you have set for them that for you to look up to somebody, they must be of a higher rank and maybe higher responsibility. And they even motivate you in one way or the other. Okay,
so beyond the definition, who is a role model right now? For many of you.
Okay, me, I'm a role model to many girls. I have seen it on social media. They say, on social media, Facebook, they call me Marianne. And most girls would say, I'd like to be like Marianne because Marianne can take all social media negativity and all that bullcrap. And also encounter for them, they see it's an achievement. And I feel like I mentor most of them into politics, and I've seen most of them take up leadership responsibility in different spaces. Even in Students' Council, right from Pwani University, one of them who was looking up to me, at least she won an election. And for me, that's like a motivation to her. So for me, I'm a role model to them. And I also have role model at a personal level, because for me to grow, I have to have dreams and ambitions, and I have to look up to somebody. So you can't grow without a model.
You, or is it someone who's out there in terms of society?
Okay, this is someone I met and saw me through my leadership. Her name is called Elizabeth Okumu. She works with TIC as a program manager.
Okay.
And she's taught me a lot in terms of leadership, personal skills, emotional intelligence. So for me, she's a role model because she has the skills I'm looking up to.
So not necessarily a public figure, but someone who is in line with what you want to do. Okay.
Hello, my name is Rosie. I'm Rono. What I think is this actually begins at an early age. It needs, at first, your first role model is the person you're living with, the person taking care of you. Just to add on what he said, it has to be somebody from a very young age. Somebody you didn't choose for them to be a role model, but you just look up to naturally. Then as you grow, become an adult, you're now able to choose or look up to anybody else. Yeah. But it has to start at a really young age for us to bring good, responsible adults.
Good point, and that will come later on in the conversation in terms of it starts at the home. But really quickly, with a show of hands, how many of you would say your role models, because they can be many, are someone who is a public figure or someone who's close to you, someone even like a parent as well? So let's say public figures.
Okay,
Okay, so two of you. And then in terms of someone close to you. Okay, and parent. Okay, interesting. Let me come to my panel. Let me start with you, Yami Mami.
Thank you.
Would you say, and this has been a debate, that being a role model is a choice? Because oftentimes you'll hear a public figure who's been caught behaving badly, and they'll say something like, well, I didn't set out to be a role model, that's not my responsibility.
Yeah.
Is it a choice, or really you have no choice as to whether you are viewed as a role model or not?
I think it's a choice. And the reason I think that is because I've heard many people say that, you know, the reason why you look up to somebody is because of their morals or their values. But in my view, a role model is someone who, there could be one specific aspect about that person that you admire, and that's what makes them a role model. So maybe it's that it's somebody who's in my career path, so I admire them because they have been able to go to managerial level. It could be somebody who behaves in a certain way. For me, for example, my role models are women in society who are just so unapologetically themselves. Yeah. So it's that aspect of their character that makes them a role model for me. So it's not necessarily them as a human, because no one is born just being, okay, I'm amazing, you know, but there could be that one thing about them that actually makes them amazing. So I don't think that it's something that you choose, because you are just the way that you are. There are people who probably follow me on social media, and the fact that I'm a good mom, maybe that's what makes me a role model for them. But for someone else, the fact that I am, I don't know, a YouTuber, maybe that's what makes, you know, me a role model for them. So I don't feel like it's something that you can choose, because you don't know what it is about you that inspires somebody. If I'm looking for female empowerment, I'll be inspired by you, let's say Victoria, because of female empowerment. Maybe I am looking for, maybe I want lighter skin, then you're my role model because I want really light skin, you know. So depending on what the person is looking for, that anyone can be a role model for them. So it's not something that the person can choose. You just are the way that you are.
That's interesting. If I can kind of take that thought forward, Derek, in terms of, all right, if you find someone that you look up to in terms of their work ethic and performance, moral compass off, integrity down the drain, should they still be a role model?
Yeah, so here's what I think. I think I sort of agree with you, Trent, but I also have a slightly different take. If you are a public figure, that's something that was mentioned here, and you know it. You mentioned the fact that the girls look up to you, you have, let's just say, a significant following on social media, you're out there, and people respond to you. You send out messages, and people respond to you. Then you have the responsibility of making sure that your deeds and your actions fall in line and in place with perhaps your values. So you are a role model in that case. And for somebody to say, let me be me or do you, I think that's the term that's fashionable.
Well done.
I think it's being willfully ignorant, I think it's being intellectually dishonest, or I think it's being irresponsible.
Wow.
Because if I look at how I live my life, I know there's a certain amount of people who look up to me in terms of how I carry myself. So it is incumbent upon me to live a life that's in line with my values, but also in line with how I expect young men, in this case, to sort of lead their lives. And so I don't think particularly public figures should not cheat themselves and say, oh, I'm not a role model, and your role model falls upon parents. We spend, in today's day and age, a significant amount of time on social media, on consuming that sort of media. In fact, we spend more time on that than we even do sleeping. The statistics are staggering. And if people are going to follow every single move you make on social media, then you have a responsibility, whether you're a role model to young girls, young men, or whatever the case might be.
And I hear you, Derek, but I really wonder if that can put someone in a trap of living up to this idea of perfection. And so because you know people look up to you, you have to kind of keep up appearances. Well, because I have this huge following, I can't let them down. And that's not really you, and you're not being true to you as a person and your flaws and imperfections and vulnerabilities. So
let me respond to that. So one of the things, I love reading, and there is a gentleman by the name of Cicero. Cicero was a philosopher, he was a poet, he was a Roman senator. So this is in ancient Roman times. And he wrote a fantastic book, which I would encourage anybody to look at. It's called On Duties. And he talks about morality. And he talks about living a life where you have higher ideals, We live in an age where we are selfish. We're selfish, we want the likes on Instagram, we want what's in it for us or for me, and we don't care about anybody else. To me, living that sort of a life is not living up to the ideals of which God placed us on this earth. And particularly, if you know that there are people who are going to perhaps imitate somebody said, or are going to look up to you, I think you have a greater responsibility. Now, Chichero's talking about a greater responsibility in terms of living a moral life to the Republic of Rome. But today, as I've mentioned, I think this thing of being selfish and living just for me, and it's all about my ego and what makes me happy, to me is perhaps not the best way.
Can I
go ahead.
Can I respond to that? For me, I think I'm the person he's describing, the one who just does their thing. But the reason why, I don't know, for me, the whole concept and the whole issue of morality just is so problematic for me. And now I'm speaking as a social media influencer. It's so problematic because it presupposes that there's someone somewhere who has decided what is good and what is bad, what is right and what is wrong, you know? And that person, now when you do something, you'll fall on either spectrum. It's either you've done a good thing or you've done a bad thing, which I find so difficult to understand because, I mean, who has said what is right and what is wrong, you know? I liked what you said about you need to, of course, hold yourself up to being, sort of like being yourself, but according to your own values. But the problem with society right now and labeling people role models is that they want you to adhere to their values and their morals. If I can give you a tangible example, I frequently post about motherhood and about marriage. I have 2 beautiful children who are 8 and 1. But recently, last year, I did a boudoir shoot. A boudoir shoot is a shoot which you do in your lingerie, you know, and for me it was all about feeling very womanly, you know, and empowering myself, and I felt so beautiful when I did that shoot, and I put my pictures on social media. Girl, let me just tell you,
they came for you.
They came for me, exactly. But you see, for me, it wasn't even a selfish thing of like, me, I just want to feel beautiful. I just want people to see my, you know, me in underwear. It was more about showing women who are plus size that you don't have to be thin to look good in underwear. You don't have to be thin to look good in a swimsuit. And so for that part of my audience, they really appreciated it because for them, it was like, this is, you know, this is empowering. It's amazing to see a bigger woman take pictures like this. But then now for like maybe the 20-30%, for them they were like, how can a mother strip down on social media? You're married, how can you be taking, these are like nudes, you know, how can you? And you see, for them now it's like, I have now finished, now I've done the bad thing, I've done the wrong thing, you see? So for me it's like, am I still being a role model if I do that? Because to someone it's horrible, to someone else it's empowering, you see? So then at what point do you now say this person has you know, gone down the moral drain? So
you were catering to your audience, which I guess is also an argument you hear a lot of people use, is this is not for everyone.
Which is a fact.
This is for people who would understand where I'm coming from. It's a statement. And I really wonder, just to hear from you guys in terms of those expectations that are placed on role models, do you feel at times they are unrealistic? And you could also speak from, you know, a position of personal standing, because you guys also are leaders in your own you know, positions. Would you feel that you have unrealistic expectations from the ones who look up to you, or just society in general as well? Yes.
Thank you. First, I want to say that being a role model depends on your values and character. And not all public figures are our role models. Because we ordinary guys, Adonija, Thuku here, can be a role model. So people, I think, pick those guys through social media to say that this is my role model. But I think, as per now, we should look at, the role model can be seen through, I think it can be seen through eyes of the beholder. I can say so. So it's not a must that you be a public figure for you to be a role model. We have ordinary people who inspires.
So just changing the whole, well, perception of what a role model generally is. But do you feel society puts just unrealistic expectations on someone who is considered a role model? I can see a hand up, then we'll come to you.
Hi. So first, to answer your question, yes, society expects a lot, but what is the society made up of? So many different people. Everyone wants to say something about somebody else. What I do think is, as you said, as a mother, there is somebody you're reaching out to. And that is the focus. Somebody who looks up to you, somebody who sees you, inspiring them in their own certain way. At no point will we ever be okay 100%. At no point will society accept something fully. Society, there are people who will fight this, they will fight good, they'll fight bad, it doesn't really matter. Yeah. So it's a matter of how many people are you reaching, the people who are with you. Like he had said, social media, people are following, you're following this person, that person. Personally, my own social media page, I have specific people I follow for a certain reason. I look up to this person because of how they dress. I look up to this person because how they speak, how they get to me on a certain level. Yeah. So that's the thing. As influencer and somebody who other people look up to, be who you know you need to be. You will reach someone. Even if it's 1%, even if it's 2%, there's somebody you're reaching to, there's somebody you're touching, there's somebody you're making better, and that is all that matters. As a role model, that is what you should be satisfied with. Not the 30% who are shaming you, who are talking ill of you, but those people, that 1, 2, 3 people who you've actually touched. You've made a difference in your own way. If other people can't really understand it, then it's okay, it's their right not to. But it's yours as a person to be who you need to be because you're reaching out someone. And that 1 person, 2 people are important enough.
Let's hear from Faith really quickly.
Okay. She said something very important. You can look up to someone in a different dimension. Look at someone like Akode. I love Akode because of one thing. She's unapologetically herself. Like the other day, she did a very tremendous work, you know, mobilizing people, doing contributions, you know, like that was so much great to me because I love doing humanitarian work. So I look up to her in that way. And to me, she's a very nice person and she's a role model to me. Yeah. So it doesn't matter how she is to me.
Okay, as you said, there is a lot of responsibility put on me as a role model, and it's not just role models, even leaders, even individual beings, even being a head teacher, there is a lot of expectation society puts on you. I'll use my story. When I was joining student leadership, I was just a first year vying for a halls representative. Once I won, I wore my normal short clothes to just a shop to buy some snacks, and the first person I met was a halls officer. She really took it hard on me. Look at you, how are you dressed? Go back and change. Don't you know you are now a leader? All girls are looking up to you. Shame on you. I was like, what? So I realized there is a way I have to dress. There is a way I have to appear in public. And she even reminded me, every time you leave your house, check yourself on the mirror. How do you expect others to see you? Is it the same way you are seeing yourself? Right. You have to be decent. So, of course, society has a lot of responsibility. They put on leaders, role models, and I advocate for women's rights. So sometimes, the other day, let me take also this opportunity to congratulate Anne Vuria for winning the UNSA election. I was her supporter, but also I was a critic to some point because people were, she's going to get this position because out of pity, out of opening ties and all that. So one day I woke up and I was so annoyed. I didn't want anybody to decide my mind, but as always, society will always decide or maybe place their thinking on your decision. So I said, having a pussy is not a disability. Let's wake up. The girls were like, hey, come on. Why are you attacking Anne Vuria? She's a woman like you. The gents were like, you see, she's now opposing a woman. For me, I just wanted to prove a point. So, being a woman should not be used as a weakness that you can't lead.
Absolutely. And let me ask this, because what I'm hearing also is this fight or struggle, especially for someone who's considered a role model, to be true to yourself and to fit into the box that society wants you in. Can you achieve both, or is it not possible? You just kind of have to choose one or the other.
So let me just quickly respond to something that you said. There are always going to be the haters in the court of public opinion, which is fought out on social media. Okay? One of the tenets, for example, of emotional intelligence is being authentic, which is being true to yourself. Yep. But being authentic is not just about doing whatever you feel floats your boat. Part of being authentic is being the best version of yourself. And whatever that means to you, being the best version of yourself. But particularly with public figures, I'm going to come back to that. Because for me, first of all, in terms of role models, they're the public figures, whether you influencers or people in entertainment, that sports and that sort of thing. There's your family. It could be a guardian, it could be a caregiver. And then everybody here is a role model in some way. If you have one person, whether that's a person who is a younger sibling or one follower on social media, that person is looking at you and you are in some manner influencing that person's, the way they live their life. So to come back to my original point, I think you have to strike a balance between being authentic, but being the best version of what that authenticity is. And particularly in social media, because that's where the majority of us sort of are able to influence other people. That's the easiest, the quickest way. As I said, we're all on social media. And we're looking at people and we're responding to how these people act. And there needs to be some sort of consistency in terms of how you present yourself. I firmly believe that. So, yeah, that's my take on it.
It's interesting. I mean, Mami, I want to get this from you as well, because social media, how has that now changed our whole perception on what a role model is? Because, like Derek was saying, practically anyone can be a public figure.
Yeah, exactly. Can
rise to that, notoriety. But what does that come with, and how has that changed how we view role models?
Yeah. For me, honestly, ideally, it shouldn't come with anything. Because as Derek is saying, and I think it's so right, you owe it to yourself to be the best version of yourself, which you should do no matter whether people see you, whether you have 1,000 followers, whether you have 100,000 followers, you should be the best version of yourself. Now, what that best version of yourself is, and how someone defines it could be very different, you know? So in terms of like, are you able to be 100% authentic to yourself and meet the standards that society sets for you? I don't think so. I don't think you can have 100% this and 100% this, because remember, everyone here grew up differently. Maybe to someone here, they're thinking, oh my God, look at her legs. She's showing her toes. How can someone show her toes? So to someone, I might be dressed indecently right now, you know? And to someone else, I'm overdressed, you see? So because of the fact that we don't all grow up in the same environment, we don't all have the same background, there will never be a point at which it's like you have 100% met society's standards and you have 100% been authentic to yourself. But for me, the key thing is remaining authentic. And I know this because like 70% of the people who I ask, like, why do you follow me on social media? Why have you come to my page? And they're like, it's because you're just real. You're just you. And for me, what I try to show them is not that I'm like some untouchable, unreachable, super popular public figure. It's just that I'm just a person like you. Just that I am on Instagram and that you see my pictures every day and you see my videos. But I'm just like you. We're just like, we're the same person, you know, kind of thing. And so that authenticity is absolutely necessary. Yes, we should try and be the best version of ourselves, but let's be honest, like how many of us have reached that standard of emotional intelligence? You need to teach us a few things.
Yes, probably after this show is done.
Yeah, we need consultation, please.
Yeah, and I really want to kind of bring it back to what we had said originally, where this whole idea of role model begins, which is at home. And our parents really kind of showing that. Should they also, because I heard someone say this, if it comes to you being worried about who influences your children, then dictate who they can listen to, look at, or follow. Do you feel that's advisable, or you allow your child to make that decision on their own? And you're both parents, I am too, but how do you kind of go about it? I'll start with you, Derek, and then you.
No, I think the parents play a huge role in terms of shaping particularly young ones, in terms of what they're consuming. I know parents who don't allow their children on social media until they're 17 or 18. And that might be a bit extreme, but that's how this particular parent feels they're bringing up their child in this world where, to be honest with you, you're bombarded with so much. And you want to be able to control this child. I mean, control in the sense that you want to be able to sort of shape the values of this child, because as somebody said, that's usually the foundation in terms of how we are raised. I'll leave that individually up to parents, but again, I'll come back to that. No parent or no guardian or no caregiver should abdicate that responsibility of being a role model if you're bringing up particularly a young child. You are shaping that child's future, and you play a huge role in it. In fact, I recently was part of a conference or a seminar where they were talking about some really interesting things, and they talked about, and just quickly I'll say this, about how pregnant mothers have such a huge outcome on, say, the personality of a child based on that, as they're carrying that child during the 9 months, the things that they do, what they consume, what they listen to, and it's an imprint that becomes part of that child's DNA.
From the womb.
From the womb.
It's interesting.
That's how much of a role model that parent is.
That's why my kids like
That's a lot of pressure.
I was eating junk the whole time. That makes sense. I mean, I completely agree with him. The parent absolutely has a responsibility to shape how that child turns out. To some extent, like, you obviously can't have 100% control over it, because in this age of social media, you can try and control what they see as much, but they're not with you all the time. There are times when they're in school, there are times when they're with their friends. You never know what they could stumble upon, but you have a responsibility to try and at least shape in this direction. You know that it's going to church, taking them to church so that they can interact with people who are like them, or, you know, exposing them to content that you know is helpful, exposing them to people who you know would be, you know, beneficial in their lives and whatnot. For me, one thing that I remember growing up with my parents that I now in my grown-up years, I wouldn't say old years, but my grown-up years have come to appreciate is that when we were kids, my parents used to give us so much choice, like a lot of choice, more than, you know, whenever I hear a post saying, you know how your mom will just tell you, go do this, go do this. My parents never did that. They would give us just like, even when we were as young as like 3 years old, they would ask you, so what do you want to wear? Or where do you want to go out to eat, you know? Or what do you, like, they would make us realize that you are a human being with thoughts and feelings and opinions, which is something that I try to imprint in my kids. And of course, as much as you'll try and make your child want, I mean, like, have somebody as a role model, ultimately they're their own person, and they may look up to someone else who you don't even, you know, you don't understand, like, why is this person a role model? Probably, you know, even with us, probably there are people who follow me and they're like, oh my God, then the others were like,
yes,
who's this chick? Exactly, what is she doing, you know? So ultimately they will choose for themselves, but as parents, we absolutely need to play a part in actually guiding them towards finding, you know, people who they can actually look up to for good.
And just quickly, not dictating their lives, but having an open conversation. You know,
Absolutely,
how was your day today? What did you encounter? Do you want to talk about it? I think certainly that's my perhaps way of parenting.
And I think as we wrap up, just to kind of get your take on all of this, you represent the generation that will be parents soon. Are any of you parents, by the way? Okay, mother already. But you will have children that you're going to be guiding. And is it something you've thought about in terms of what does a role model look like? Especially also now in this social media age where anyone can be that. Social media, I like to call, is like the great equalizer. You know, you can now talk to Trump if you wanted, and to Kanaim if you wanted, and no one's going to get on your case. If you are considering this world you're coming up in now, what does a role model look like, and what should they look like, considering all of the pressures and things that come with?
Okay, once again, I think I'll emphasize on something. We are living in a society whereby, when, for example, a lady comes back home with an iPhone, parents do not ask where she's got it from. But when she comes back with pregnancy, now it becomes a question to be discussed.
Wow.
That is the society we are living in. Like, parents have reached a moment whereby they've left their children to social media. Social media has become a community where people get morals, get immorality, and get everything there. Because even now our parents, sometimes for you to access them and even have a lengthy conversation with them, you have to approach them via WhatsApp, Facebook. Maybe if you commented well on your father's photo, on that day you'll have a conversation in the evening in the house. So that is the kind of society we're living in. Again, I think the easiest formula to fail in life is trying to please everybody every time. So you realize that you be who you are. Let somebody who wants to be you or be like you follow you. If, for example, personally, I want to be a transformational politician, and if I want to be an MP, my role model will be maybe Babu, you know. If I wanted to be a pastor, I look for maybe Prophet Dr. David Ward. I
That's
can't,
the one you want.
like, I can't.
And we can't judge his choices. Yeah,
I can't.
You know, his choices.
Yes. I can't get the traits of Babu, you know, in Prophet David Ward.
Right.
And that one cannot make me now to criticize somebody because he doesn't have the characters I want. At the end of the day, if you behave like a politician and you're influencing people, those who want to be pastors will always criticize you. Those who want to be preachers or witch doctors will always criticize you because you're not representing what they want to be. So at the end of the day, it's all about what do you want.
Great point. We'll take the last one here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, in the society we are living today, we are saying that the society assumes that we the youth know everything. Like you'll go to school and know, parents don't want to talk about things that are critical, issues about sexuality, immorality. They don't want to talk about it. The churches don't want to talk about it. So I think in the future we need to be parents who are free with our kids, to be, you know, have that interactive sections, go out with your kids. Don't just let them go out to the church or their friends in WhatsApp. So that's my take.
Amazing. Be what you never got or be what you've never seen. At times you don't have a role model who has done the exact path you want to take.
Exactly.
Like so you were saying, take traits, character from someone who you feel I'd want to be like them, but not exactly them, like them. Thank you so much, Joanne, Derek, and to my mini audience, extended panel. Thank you so much for your insights. Something to think about as we move forward, and for parents and those who consider themselves role models, what you should consider. Thanks for watching. Have a wonderful evening. Let's do this again next week.